The night she ran for her life, the sky seemed to split open with thunder, as if the heavens themselves were warning her that everything was about to change. Her lungs burned, her feet were cut, and her entire world, one built from gold, rules, and expectations, was collapsing behind her with every desperate step she took. She didn't know where the narrow alley led. She didn't know if the men sent after her were seconds behind. All she knew was that if they caught her, her life would no longer belong to her. She would be trapped in a marriage chosen not for love, but for power, prestige, and an empire she never asked to be the heir of. She pressed her trembling hand against the rusted metal door she stumbled upon, not knowing that fate had brought her to the only person in the world capable of saving her. And he was someone she never would have looked at twice in her old life, a poor mechanic with oil-stained hands, a tired soul, and a heart far richer than any palace she had ever lived in. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected connections, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness to support inspiring stories like this. Inside that dimly lit garage, where the ground was littered with tools and the scent of gasoline mixed with rain, the young mechanic heard the frantic knock and felt something inside him shift. He had been working late, trying to finish one last repair so he could earn enough for rent, food, and maybe a little for the stray cats he fed behind the shop. His life was a quiet struggle, one where every day felt like a test. But he had never once turned away someone who needed help, even when he had nothing to give. When he opened the door and saw her, drenched, shivering, terrified in her expensive torn dress, he didn't ask questions. Something about the raw fear in her eyes told him everything he needed to know. Someone was after her, someone dangerous, and without hesitation, without thinking of the consequences, he stepped aside and let her in. As the storms grew outside, she sank onto the cold floor, unable to catch her breath. She had never known this kind of fear, not in her marble mansion, not in her boardrooms, not in the luxury she grew up around like a golden cage. Her life as a billionaire's daughter had always seemed perfect from the outside. But the truth was suffocating. Every decision had been made for her. Every moment of her life had been scheduled, monitored, controlled. And when her father decided she would marry a powerful business tycoon twice her age, a man whose charm was a mask for cruelty, she knew she had to escape. Running in the middle of the night, without a plan, without a phone, without even proper shoes, was not bravery. It was desperation, and somehow, desperation had led her to this stranger's garage. The mechanic quietly gave her water, a blanket, and a place to sit. He didn't try to pry into her past. Instead, he simply existed near her, calm, present, gentle. The soft hum of the rain outside made the tiny space feel like a fragile sanctuary, carved out of the chaos she had just escaped. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. And he, who had grown accustomed to loneliness, felt something stir inside him as he watched her slowly recover. There was an aura of fragility around her, but also a strength he couldn't explain, like a bird that had escaped a silk-covered cage. In the hours that followed, she helped him organize tools, wiped off grease from the counters, and even smiled softly at the stray cat that wandered in. He noticed her small gestures, her quiet gratitude, the way she kept looking at the door as if she feared someone would burst in at any second. Her vulnerability made him more protective than he expected. He gave her the old storage room to rest in, the only space he could offer. It wasn't much: concrete walls, an old mattress, and a flickering bulb. But when she lay down, she felt safer than she ever had in her luxurious mansion. The next day, as sunlight crept through the cracks in the garage door, she woke to find him already working. The rhythmic clang of tools was oddly comforting. She watched him silently for a moment. His back was bent, his hands steady, his expression focused. He worked with a kind of humility she had never seen. He wasn't doing it for recognition, for wealth, or for legacy. He was doing it because survival demanded it. And yet, he carried no bitterness. The softness in his eyes betrayed a man who had learned to accept hardship with grace. She found herself drawn to that quiet resilience. As days passed, they began to share unspoken emotions. She stayed hidden, afraid to step outside because the men looking for her were still searching the city. He brought her food, kept her company, and taught her small things: how to fix a spark plug, how to identify engine sounds, how to tie her hair so it didn't fall into her face while working. In return, she cleaned the garage, prepared simple meals, and listened when he spoke about his dreams. He wanted to expand the garage one day, maybe open a second shop, maybe fix cars not just to survive but because he genuinely loved them. She learned he had struggled all his life, losing his parents young, never completing school, living paycheck to paycheck. But despite everything, he had never let the darkness harden him. He still saw beauty in small things, hope in broken places, and kindness in strangers. His world was humble, but it was honest. Unlike hers, where every smile hid an agenda, every decision had consequences, and every luxury came with invisible chains. Slowly, she began to heal, not just her fear, but old wounds she had never acknowledged. The garage became her refuge, and he became her anchor. She found joy in the simplicity of sharing tea in the morning, handing him tools as he worked, and hearing the stray cat purr beside them. She laughed for the first time in months, really laughed, when he accidentally spilled oil on himself. Her presence softened his loneliness. His presence gave her the freedom she had never known. But the world she fled wasn't ready to let her go. One evening, as the sun painted the sky orange, a black car slowly rolled past the garage. The mechanic noticed the way she froze, the color draining from her face. Instantly, he understood. Without hesitation, he turned off the lights, pulled her into the back room, and locked the door. His heartbeat raced, but he stayed steady. For the first time, he feared not for himself, but for someone else. The car lingered, shadows moved, voices echoed outside. He stood watch, body tense, ready to shield her with his life if needed. And in that moment, she realized something startling. This stranger, this poor mechanic, was more willing to protect her than anyone in her wealthy world ever had. Hours later, when the danger passed, she looked at him with eyes filled with something deeper than gratitude. Something tender, something powerful, something she had never expected to feel. He looked back, and though neither of them spoke it aloud, the air shifted between them. It was no longer just safety, or kindness, or refuge. It was connection, real and raw. Days later, when she finally told him the truth, who she really was, what she had escaped from, he was stunned. He had known she came from money, but not that she was the heiress of a billion-dollar empire. Yet his reaction wasn't anger, or fear, or awe. He simply looked at her the same way he had from the beginning, as a human being, not a title. And for her, that meant everything. But reality couldn't be escaped forever. Her disappearance had become national news. Pressure built. Investigators searched relentlessly. Eventually, her father found her, not through force, but through her own decision. She knew she couldn't hide forever in the shadows of a garage, no matter how warm it felt. She had to face her life. But she wanted to face it differently now, with courage, with boundaries, and with the conviction that her life belonged to her. With the mechanic standing beside her, she confronted her father. She refused the arranged marriage. She demanded control over her own life. And shockingly, her father, seeing her determination, her changed spirit, relented. It wasn't immediate, it wasn't easy, but she had found her voice, and she used it. In the weeks that followed, she returned to the garage, not as a fugitive, but as a woman choosing where her heart felt at home. She invested in his shop quietly, anonymously, refusing to let him feel indebted. She wanted him to have the life he deserved, a life where he didn't have to count coins, a life where his kindness wasn't limited by poverty. The garage expanded. He hired 2 helpers. The stray cat became a permanent resident. And she found herself spending more time there than anywhere else, drawn not to the place, but to the man whose compassion had saved her life. If this emotional journey touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Your support helps bring powerful, human stories to life. Before this story ends, here is a special request. Please comment below what you would have done if someone scared and alone knocked on your door in the middle of the night. Your words might inspire someone else. And with that, the story closes, a reminder that sometimes the richest hearts are found in the poorest places, and sometimes the greatest rescues happen when 2 lost souls cross paths in the dark.